Welcome to the Ask for Football Army Football Show. The Army Football Show is an insider's guide for cadets, old grads, and college football fans to follow the Army team throughout their season as they seek to beat Navy and claim the Commander-in-Chief's trophy. Ask for Football is brought to you by our sponsor, Jocelyn Bradley Real Estate. Whether you're buying, selling, or just exploring your options, Jocelyn Bradley is the expert you can trust to navigate the real estate market with ease. Visit jocelynbradley.com to learn more. And let's get started at the Ask for Football Army Football Show. It's a bye week. Army does not have an opponent, and usually when we have bye weeks, we try and bring somebody on out of the college football pantheon that is related to the Army football team. This week, we have former Army football player and team captain, Sandon McCoy. So we'll start with the basics. Your group, what companies, what did you participate in school in addition to football, or was football only it? And then we have some specific questions from the Firsty Club that we want to dive into as well. So the floor is yours, sir.
Yep. So starting with some basics. So year group class 2021, COVID class year. I like to say that. Companies. I was actually in F3 all 4 years, so I never got scrambled. I know a lot of people tell me a lot of horror stories about scrambling and whatnot. I actually never scrambled. I kept the same exact room for all 4 years at my time at West Point. I guess the downside on that though is I lived in Lee Barracks, and I'm not sure if you remember, Rob, but Lee Barracks is Lee Barracks looks the same that when you were there. All right, I know it still looks the same when I was there, and also like 50 years ago. Okay, it hasn't got any better. And then as far as participating in any other activities at school, class. Yeah. I wouldn't say unfortunately, but just as Army football player, we are limited with our time because it's taken up with football, weightlifting, meetings, games, traveling, or whatever it may be. And so that was kind of my main focus for really, my time there until I left.
Yeah. And that makes sense. And again, I know that was one of the things that you don't really appreciate how much time is taken away from the sports teams, particularly the revenue generating ones, if we want to call it that. When you look at like football, basketball, hockey, those sports consume so much of the athlete's time that it's a wonder that people pass, honestly, because you spend a lot of time between the practice field, the weight room, and going to classes. And then you still have to try and squeeze in homework and everything else that everybody else is doing. After practicing, your body is exhausted. Your brain is probably smoked because you've been watching films all day. And then I have to go in and do DDS, man. Like I don't wish that. I don't wish that evil on anyone because, I understand like the academic rigor and, people have talked about, and I've had experiences with, more recent cadets and people that have recently graduated. And one of the things, the academics have changed, but it's still is not easier. You know what I mean? It's like, it's different. I won't say it's easier. It's just different. And so that's one of the things that's really crazy. All 4 years in F3. How was that? Because I know that like scrambling for us was interesting because like our company and Go Friars F1, it's the Firehouse now. I don't know why I keep changing it, but we made an effort as firsties in our company to take care of the cows that were rotating in. So we had a great relationship with all of our upperclassmen when we showed up in the summer. Like we had cow firstie bash and everybody got to know each other and really, oh, this guy's cool. You knew who you could hang with, the people that were, in your major, or the folks that would, help you out with other things, just far as your development as a cadet, particularly going into your first year and then commissioning. And so we had a really good intro when we scrambled. And so we tried to carry that tradition the next year. And so we were, just as welcoming and open to the cows when it came in. So I think, at West Point, it's like, it's two different kind of methods. You know what I mean? Like the scrambling is good. I think it helps because even still after scrambling, there were cadets. Like when I went back for my reunion, I had no idea who they were. Like we had all went to school together, but I'm like, who is this guy? I have no idea who this cat is, So that's always very, very interesting. But that's super unique kind of thing. And so were you you were in the pathway of coming into West Point when Army beat Navy, and that's like one of my biggest memories of the 2016 season was I was deployed, and I tell the story, and I'm sure like the First Club's rolling their eyes right now, but I actually got to watch Army beat Navy on the big screen in the Jock in Kuwait. So we, had to convince our G3 to let us put it on the big screen. I was like, hey, sir, like we've got a joint task force. You got Navy guys here. You got Army guys here. It's like, it's kind of not cool to let us watch the game. We can watch baseball, but we can't watch the Army Navy game. And so the boss was like, all right, turn it on. But if, something pops off, you got to shut everything down and fight the war. Like that. No joke, sir. Yeah. Roger. Like we're not going to not do that. But, it was one of the most awesome things, very memorable moment for me because like we're watching on a 100-inch screen, watching Army, pull out probably the best. I won't say it was the best Army Navy win, other than the fact that it had been so long since Army had beat Navy that it was just exciting. And then, what was it? 2 to 3 more. It was 2 more wins back to back after that. And I think you were a part of those. So how was it to beat Navy? Because I know that we have a lot of Army football players for a good chunk of time that just don't have that experience. And so what did that feel like, when the clock hit zeros and Army at 1?
Yeah. I mean, great, of course. And I feel bad for anybody who didn't beat Army in the past, but I can truthfully say I beat them 3 out of 4 years. And we should have beat them that year we didn't beat them, but that's all cool. But I don't know. I mean, it's just so much builds up to that game, but just being a player, I mean, we always go into the game, we know we're going to win. All right. The first 2 years on the team, so I was a freshman, we beat them. Didn't play too much, but I did travel. I did a lot of travel my freshman year. I was behind the Andy Davidson, Darnell Wolfel, Kalen Hall, Connor Slompa. So I didn't play too much my freshman year. I had some dogs in front of me. But my sophomore year, when I was there, I got to play a little bit. I actually got hurt like the 4th or 5th game, so I kind of had a big, significant role in that game. But I mean, junior year we did lose, unfortunately. But the senior year, I think that was the most unique game that I can never forget because it was at Mikey,
Yeah.
It was at Mikey, in our own backyard. We didn't lose a home game that entire season. It was just the core cadets there. I think Donald Trump came as well, the president at the time. And so, I mean, the atmosphere was, it was just amazing for us. And so you come into Mikey Stadium, I don't care who you are. Yeah, I mean, especially if you're Navy, like you're not coming out of there with a dub. Absolutely not. But just having the ability, I guess you can just call it bragging rights that to say that I beat him 3 out of 4 years and people hadn't beat him in like a 20 years or a 15-year span, 5-year span, whatever it may be. Definitely feels good just knowing that I was a part of that team. So yeah.
Yeah, I was hoping for you guys to win because like my class was the last class. So 97 was the last class to win all 4 against Navy. And so it's like I had classmates who had kids that were teenagers that had never seen Army beat Navy in the Army Navy game. And so it was like kids like, why are you so upset, Dad? Like Army never beats Navy. And so when the dam broke, when the dam broke, it became a rivalry again. And I think that's one of the things that if you're a fan of college football and not a fan of a particular team, you want to see the rivalries go back and forth, or it's like, hey, a team will win for 3 years, a team will lose for 3 years, but you want those rivalries to be competitive because, those are going to be the only things on television, particularly, Army Navy. You want those games to be played in isolation and have some quality football going on. I think, the whole, Army Navy and then Army Air Force at Mikey Stadium during the COVID year was just that was amazing. I mean, I don't think it's going to get much better than that, as far as just being like a football purist and Mikey Stadium to this day, if you're a college football fan and you're just dipping into this podcast, like if you don't go see a game at Mikey Stadium, that's like bucket list item before you go. We interviewed the the guy from the college football uh, tour, and he went to Mikey Stadium twice because he went to the BC game and it was raining, so he didn't get to see all the pageantry. So he went back on a better weekend so he could see all the marching and the skydiving and all the other things that are associated with watching a game at Mikey Stadium.
Yeah.
So it's an incredible opportunity, and I mean that's super cool to realize that you got that. So you alluded to it earlier, and these are some questions that we had actually from the Firsty Club, who are the guys that are on our Patreon. And so you talked about being a plebe, and it was like, how intimidating was it for you when you were so low on the depth chart your freshman year? Because that's a murderer's row of like great B-backs in the history of Army football that were in that locker room at the same time that you were a plebe. So how did that feel, and how did you stay motivated in that reality? And that's from Corey. He's one of the Firsty Club members. But what were your thoughts about that? Trying to make the best of I wouldn't say a bad situation because you said you traveled, but like,
Yeah.
you're probably a utility player at the very least, if not seeing the field at the very most. So what are your thoughts on like your freshman, your plebe experience in the locker room?
Yeah. So first and foremost, like shout out to like one the B-back room at the time, and also just all the upperclassmen, right? I mean, usually when you travel as a plebe, it's a little bit different. One, you don't know the first class like that, or the Cal class, and those are those and both of those years, I mean, those guys were great, offense and defense, right? And so, which is good. I mean, I think I learned a lot. I know for a fact I learned a lot, and I don't think I would have been the player I was my first year, being a captain and all the leadership that came with it, without like Darnell Woolfolk or Andy Davidson, Connor Slomka, and those great guys, Kalen Holt too. And kind of how I'd say how I worked my way into the rotation though was, all right, we have 10 different runners. All right. But when these 10 different runners need a break, they need somebody to block. All right. I'll go set the edge. I'll go run somebody over and block, you know what I mean? And so that's kind of how the physicality I got from the we call it, just from the B-back room from them. And that's how I kind of walked my way onto the field, right? Of course, you got special teams, stuff like that. And so, but just knowing that, I mean, and it began in practice as well. Like I was getting reps just as much as they were getting reps in practice. Of course, like we don't want to kill ourselves in practice, but obviously, like if something did happen, I had to be ready. So I think it began in practice. I think it began in games, just going in there blocking, and it just transformed like my sophomore, junior, senior year there. Okay, now I got the starting position, and I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable because now I already learned from the greatest, from the people who were in front of me at a younger age. So that's how I felt.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that we see, and we talked about it yesterday on the roundtable, but that's one of the things that we see is like the purism of the service academies in their football. Like if you go there as a player, and this will go right into our next question, but as a player, you get to develop over time, and you're not looking to exit or go to the next opportunity, which some of the other schools have that problem. And so, that next man up mentality is exactly that at West Point. And then for all you younger players that are listening, physicality matters, right? So be good in the weight room, be good in practice. And like, if coach tells you to go out there and block, go pancake somebody, because he will see that on film, And so those are all important aspects of the game to build yourself up, to give yourself the next opportunity and, move on in the next part of playing ball. So you talked about how, the mentorship came from in the B-back room, but how did coach evolve you as a player as well? So, you had your position coach, the head coach, like what was their influence on you and your development as well as a player going through your academy experience?
Yeah. I mean, I think it began just getting recruited. I was a guy who really didn't know what West Point was at the time, didn't even know Army had a football team. And Jay Bateman, I'm not sure where he's D coordinating at right now, but I mean, great recruiting coach. He eventually left, but also just Coach Munkin. Coach Munkin he treats everyone on that team, 180 players, like they're his son. And it's incredible how he does it. It's incredible how he does it. I'm not sure how he does it. each year, but he does, right? So it began there, and then of course, I'm gonna argue with anybody who says this. Mike Vitti is probably the best coach at Army football from years ago till years to come until he leaves.
Yeah.
So it also began with him because not only did we have a coach who was just coaching, he's coaching from his past experience too, and so now he's able to coach from, when he played as a football player, but also now he's coaching from like the grit standpoint from actually graduating from West Point, serving the military, fighting so much adversity, coming back, and now, okay, now let me dive into these guys. Okay, now we're not only playing with like, grit, tenacity, but we're playing with the chip on our shoulder because like it means so much more. It does. I mean, it goes a lot deeper than just football in that be-back room. It will always continue to go much deeper in that be-back room. And I think even just on the team itself, as long as you have somebody who played in Army football or graduated, went to war, deployed, or whatever it may be, and came back, is now putting value back into the team, it's always going to be different. And I think that separates us from the people who, have the NIL deals. You're not going to get something like that at a regular college. You're not. But here it's just so different, and it's built into you.
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said about that, because I know like there's been periods of time where the football team is probably the least respected organization at the academy, and I say that not because of any other reason than everybody that's not on the team's like, well, why do they get all these breaks, right? Like, why do they, well, this guy gets to carry more weight. Like, yeah, but like if you've watched the transformation of a guy afterwards, he's a fan of the show, and he's my classmate, Tim Booth. And, Timmy was an offensive lineman, and to watch the transformation of his body after the last game until graduation, all the weight that he lost, that was part of their journey as well. And like you still have to meet all those physical standards before you graduate. And I think that's one of the things that we don't communicate as well to the core writ large, because all they know is like, oh, these guys are football players, they got all this other stuff, blah, 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 and it's easy to be downtrodden, particularly if you're like one of the semi-athletic regular people at West Point. And I say semi-athletic because everybody has to play a team sport at some point, but not everybody has the skill set or the abilities to play at the collegiate level in their respective sports. And so there's a lot of transformation. And I could say, like, even in my experience as a guy, a green suiter in the Army, is watching the difference between the Army football players that graduated before me, the guys that I went to school with, and then the guys that I've encountered in the Army after graduation, and particularly after Coach Monken got there. There's been a significant change in the overall attitude of the program and the guys that are coming into the Army after that experience. And so, I truly believe that Coach Monken he is the exact right guy for the job.
Yep.
And he's smart enough to know as a coach that I got to pick the right supporting cast to surround himself with. And like Coach Vitti, like, I don't know if you ever saw the video from the guy that's son, Mr. Josh Prey. His son is going to West Point next year. And it's like a 2-minute rant of like every recruiting pitch that you would use for West Point. Like, this guy said it in like 2 minutes. And the two people that he complimented the most, was Coach Monken and the coaching staff. He's like, everybody in the staff is super friendly, super professional, but like they all look like they could throw down like at a moment's notice. And it's like, that's fair, And so I think that's part of, that's just part of the culture of Army now, and it may not have been that way with other coaches. And it's certainly different than, the experience that we had with Coach Sutton and then Coach Ross. And like, there were some other guys in there that we don't talk about because they're persona non grata with Army football fans. But you talked about, the experience and the attraction of Army as far as coming to schools or like the NIL stuff. And NIL wasn't really a thing when you were coming into the academy, but what other schools recruited you? Did you have any other options on the table? Was Army it, or, were you thinking about other stuff? Because one of the things that I've seen, and one of the points that I want to make is like, depending upon where the school sits in like the pantheon of college football, if you go to something traditional as a group of 5 schools, and the TNT podcast called this out on a couple of the players that went to UConn, but like you actually have sports writers and evaluators that will knock you down a half a star or star position, as a recruit, because you're going to a group of 5 school rather than, rolling the dice to be number 17 on the bench at Alabama. But when it came to your choice to decide, like, hey, am I going to Army or am I going someplace else? Did you have any other offers, or was there anything else on the table that kind of influenced you, or what was that process like?
Yeah, so all three academies actually offered me, along with a couple other schools in North Carolina, small schools like Gardner Webb, Elon. I was actually talking to JMU for a little bit as well, Temple as well, and then I think that's about it. But it was my main focus was definitely all the academies because it was just different. It was
Yeah.
certainly different to me because one, I didn't know any, like I'm just a high schooler, and I love football, and so I didn't know anything about the academy, the rivalry, or whatever it may be. And so when Army came, and then and then Coach Calhoun came, and a lot of them, Coach Ken came as well, speaking with me time to time, but Army just kept coming, kept coming. Coach Munkin, Coach Bateman kept coming, Coach Vitti. And the biggest thing, I guess, for me and my decision was really just, the other side, the other side of college football, the other side of college, just in general.
Mhm.
I mean, at a young age, it's a big decision. It's certainly a
Yeah.
big decision. And so what I saw was, the toughest school that a lot of people don't go to. A lot of people can't get in. A lot of people don't graduate from.
Yeah.
I said, if that's tough, I'm tough. Let's see who's tougher. All right. And
Wow.
graduated in 2021, so you can see who won that battle. I'll tell you that. But that was kind of my mindset going in.
Yeah, and that's one of the things it's like the challenge of the academy, and Dan talks about it all the time. And so one of the things he always talks about is like, hey, you're this high school athlete, you're recruited for a particular sport, and you show up, and then you go from high school hero to West Point zero,
Yeah.
and that's a culture shock.
Yeah.
And the reality of it is like you're not alone in that, but it certainly feels that way because it's just you and your roommate, trying to avoid, the random upperclassman that's going to get into your business as you're walking to the chow hall. And so I
Yeah.
think that's a very important aspect of it. And it's important because Army is, you know, if anybody asks me, I just say, hey, it's a great place to start, right? You don't have to do 20 years, but it's a great academic institution. You can learn a lot. You're going to have a career when you get out. You're not going to have any student debt. So it's a great place to start. So like, if you do, 5-10 years in the Army and you decide to take a different course, like much younger version of me would have been like, oh, you suck. You need to do 20 years and stay forever. But it's not for everyone. Not everybody is cut out for, to be a lifer. Like I was, but that doesn't mean that's your situation. You know what I mean? And it takes maturity and wisdom to kind of grow out of that. And it's always nice to see, the next generation of leaders that are coming out of the academies because it's different. Like I said, it's not more or less difficult. It's just different. And I think that's the easiest way. And one of the things that my classmates said, like I said, we had our class call this weekend, and it's like, everybody says the core has, that's the first words out of it. And now the back part of it is the core has gotten better. It's expanded. There's a lot of new opportunities. There's more school. There's a lot more things that we're talking about, a lot more opportunities that the cadets get than we ever had, and as an old grad, you just got to be thankful for that because I got to make this school more attractive because if I'm a smart kid with the right SAT score, I could just as easily go to MIT, or West Point or Navy or some other, academic institution that's going to have the rigor but not going to have the structure. And so I
Right.
think that's important. So last question is, what are you doing now? So what was your career like, after Army football graduation, and what are you doing today?
Yeah. And so after Army football, immediately I became an AI. So I was a coach at the prep school for about 9 to 12 months. Enjoyed that. It was just a blast. I went to the prep school myself, and so just to be able to give back, kind of have that opportunity to lead, as like I looked up to other people as second lieutenants who were leading me. I mean, it was phenomenal. After that, I went to Bullock. I'm an armor officer. So I went to Armor Bullock at Fort Benning, now Fort Moore. And then I went to Fort Lewis. So currently I'm still at Fort Lewis right now. I actually switched branches to Signal. So I'll be going a different route. I know you mentioned you stayed in 20. I'm not sure if that's going to be the same glide path I take, but as of now, currently at EXO with 114 Cav as a unit that's divesting.
Nice.
And yeah, all the Cavs going away. And it's funny because I've been in the Cav my entire career. As soon as I came into West Point, I was with F3, which is the troop. I went to a Bullock. I was with, I forget what troop I was with, but I was in another troop, the Cav unit, and then also I came to 114 Cav, and we're also troops. And so it started there, of course, but yeah. And then just as I do transition out the military, when that time does come, the next 2.5 years, just taking a business role, probably definitely business. Not sure just yet what route I want to take. Finance is definitely going to be attractive for me personally. I love sales as well, but just really utilizing all the resources, something like Cameron Brooks program, just a junior military officer transition program, stuff using every resource we have, and also just even the West Point network, right? That hasn't let me down yet, and I know it won't. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, and that's good. Like, so 114, long history with that organization. They actually deployed with them in 2003 as a so when they were part of the first Striker Brigade, when they rolled out of the gate and did their first operational deployment, I was a company commander in BCO 123. So you are right up the street from a whole bunch of guys that I know. And so if you ever need anything, go talk to the Tomahawks, because they're good folks over there. There's quite a few Army alumni that went through that whole brigade. So 3-2, current division commander at the 82nd, Pat Work. I commanded the same company in 123 a couple years, couple commanders removed. So like the Army is super small, the West Point community is super small, and then kind of all those touch points around the same thing. And General Work was at the game this weekend because the 82nd patch for the uniform this week. So again, super cool. Congratulations on your graduation and your experience. I mean, like, being a signal officer is always important. They talk bad about us, but they can't talk without us. We all know that drill. And really appreciate you coming on the show today. This has been great. Hey, we got a couple more things. It is Patreon. So if you like Ask for Football and you want to support our coverage of Army sports, the American Football Conference, we certainly could use your help through Patreon. Go to patreon.com/Ask for Football to learn more. We have links on our website. At the yearling level, you get weekly games and locks. At the Cal level, you get that plus our scouting report. At the Firsty Club level, you get exclusive access to our private Facebook group, and it's the best place to talk about Army sports. We're all super fans, and we keep it positive and we keep it private. So that's the best part about it. You also get access to recordings of the show like this, so you can interact early. This podcast will drop as early as possible for them, and then it'll come out to the rest of the world. We spent a lot of money over the past couple of years doing this. We're now in StreamYard. We're using Podcastable AI to improve sound quality, and we have regular recording times so people can join us live. All that takes time and money, and that's why we need your support. So last thing before we go, we usually have a favorite thing. My favorite thing is being able to do this interview. I really appreciate you coming on today and giving us a little bit of your time. Very important. We understand that you're busy, and for you to take time out of your day to talk to us and the Army football fan base is great. If you are a parent listening, like, fingers and toes, your kids are going to be okay. If you're a recruit listening, the experience is it's not all doom and gloom. It seems like that when you come in as a plebe, because you just don't know any better. But hindsight in the rearview mirror, West Point is a very good place to start. And I'll give you the last word before we close this thing out.
Yep, favorite. Yeah, it gets better. All right, that's all I really got to say. It definitely gets better. You go through some growing pains. Use some people to lean on. Have some great class. You have great classmates. All right, it's just not you. It's everybody. Okay, we all go through it. All right, that's all I got, Rob.
Awesome. Thanks. We really appreciate you coming on. So this has been the Ask for Football Army Football Show. And as always, beat the bye week, and then we will beat the Rice Owls. And we'll talk to you guys next week. Thanks. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Ask for Football Army Football Show. Big thanks to our sponsor, Jocelyn Bradley Real Estate, for supporting us and the Long Gray Line. If you're looking to buy or sell a home, reach out to Jocelyn. She's got your back. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the show with your friends. And as always, eat Navy.